I'm sure you look forward to doing it. I'd like to call this meeting, the Clay County Commission, to order. We will begin with our invocation from Mark Willis. If you'd like to step forward.
My name is Mark Willis. I'm the pastor for North Oak Christian Church here in Clay County. And June 8th, we'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary of mission and ministry here in Clay County. Invite all of the commissioners, if you are free that day, come join us. We're going to have good food. So would you join me for the invocation? Most gracious God, we thank you for this beautiful day that you have blessed us with, for the weather this week, which reminds us that spring is coming. As our hearts and spirits reawaken to you and we see your creation around us bursting forth with new life. We gather here tonight, Lord, and we thank you for each of these commissioners, these public servants who have given of their time, their energy, their focus, their resource to be a part of the solutions that are proffered here, Lord. We ask that your Spirit be here among them, that the work they do be good work, that it benefit all of the residents, the workers, and the visitors to our community. Lord, just watch over and bless everyone who comes under this county and this place. We thank you for all of them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Please remain standing for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Nolte, Commissioner Withington, Commissioner Lawson, Commissioner Wagner,
I'm here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Thompson, Commissioner Carpenter.
Here.
Agenda. Is there a motion? Commissioner Johnson?
Move to approve this evening's agenda.
Motion has been made for the approval of this evening's agenda. Discussion? Seeing none, you're recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson, Commissioner Wagner.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
That brings us to public comments. Are there any citizens wishing to make comments to the commission on any issues? Seeing none. That moves us to our consent agenda. Administrator?
The consent agenda allows the Commission to act upon items considered to be routine and approved in one motion. These may include items that have been reviewed by the Commission in a prior session. There will be no separate discussion unless a Commissioner requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. There are 7 items on the consent agenda this evening. The first item is approval of the Commission meeting minutes from February 27th. Resolution 2025-75 is approving invoice payments for Clay County from the period of February 29th to March 7th. There are a total of 391 invoices in the amount of $595,256.90. Resolution 2025-77, approving the renewal of the Jesse James Bank Museum lease agreement for with Old Farm Holdings, LLC for the Parks Department. Resolution 2025-79 is approving the renewal of property and casualty insurance policy with Travelers Insurance and Chubb Insurance. Resolution 2025-74 is approving the reappointment of 3 commissioners to the Clay County Economic Development Council Board of Directors for 2025. Resolution 2025-81, the reappointment of a member to the Airport Advisory Board. And Resolution 2025-80 is a reappointment of 3 members to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you. Is there a motion related to this evening's consent agenda? Commissioner Johnson. Oops. There you go.
Move to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Motion's been made for the approval of this evening's consent agenda. Discussion? There's just one thing I want to add, and that is there are a couple of items on consent regarding appointments or reappointments to different boards and commissions. As a result of some of the discussion we had some weeks ago, the part of those resolutions has been removed that would make them automatically, maybe not renewing so much, but that the person would serve until they were resigned or were replaced. So we've just left that off going forward, I can say as a result of what I took to be the will of the commission. I say that so if anybody wants to take one of those items and then discuss them further, that is a change that may not have been apparent, and I wanted to make sure the commission was aware of that. It's my intention to go forward with that same vein so that I am honoring essentially the consensus of the commission, and unless there's any objection, I just want to make that point. Is there any other discussion or a comment on the consent agenda? Seeing none, Commissioner, you're recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson? Commissioner Wagner?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
That brings us to this evening's regular agenda. First item on this evening's regular agenda is 2025-41. Administrator.
Resolution 2025-41 is a request for a waiver of fees, interest, penalties, and taxes due to a county error by Thomas and Julia Randolph, and I believe Ms. Randolph is in the audience to provide information to the commission.
If the applicants are present and would like to come forward, please do so. As with anyone else who comes up to go address the commission, please make sure the button is pressed and the green light is on. It just came on the microphone. It's on.
Okay.
State your name and then address the commission. And like I say, please speak into the microphone so that we can hear you very clearly. With that, please proceed.
My name is Julia Randolph, and I received an invoice for a late charge on my property taxes, which I had mailed, which I thought was plenty of time to get here in time, and I guess somehow it got posted late or whatever. But anyway, I don't feel that I owe that.
Okay. Commissioner Lawson, we have some commissioners who would like to ask you some questions, so if you wouldn't mind.
Okay.
Commissioner Lawson?
Yeah, so you did pay that mail that on the 30th?
Yes.
Right? I want to clarify with our counselor, in the past, when there's been something of this nature where it is the result of the post office, what do we need to do to be able to help her with this under those circumstances? Because I know there were several where we forgave because of the,
For example, there was one where there was an obvious crime where a payment was taken out of a mailbox and the check was changed. The reality is the statute is very clear that it has to be an error or omission of the county.
it's what?
It has to be an error or omission of the county. And clearly, situations with the post office, that wouldn't be the case. There is some language in I think Chapter 137 that does have a way to approach some of this when there's a finding on the post office. Now, I will tell you, I think that language does suggest that a statement from the postmaster is required. But with that information, the commission has moved forward in the past.
Okay. In the past, those that we have taken care of because of that, did they all have, does anyone remember, did they have a letter from the postmaster?
They did not.
Huh?
They did not.
They did not, okay. I think that kind of sets a precedent. So, okay.
Commissioner Johnson.
A couple of questions. First, on the paperwork we have, I don't see the breakdown of the fees as penalties, interest, that kind of stuff. I see a contested amount. Mm-hmm. Is that just the combination of the two, or?
Yes. It's the total amount.
Does anybody else have that information? How much is penalty and how much is interest?
I have my bill.
Maybe from the collector's office here? Oh. I've never seen that on a form like this before. Are we doing something different?
I have it here if you...
I'm sorry, ma'am. No, I have that paperwork. I'm actually asking staff if they know.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Normally what happens when this form is done, when we get it, it shows how much you're being charged for your interest and penalties for allegedly paying late. It doesn't have that breakdown on the form this time, so I'm not sure why. I was wondering if there's any explanation to that. That's just overlooked. I don't know.
The form that you're referring to that's in your packet is actually, I believe, completed by the applicant, and so normally, and so we don't change that form
okay.
that's submitted.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
and I'm sorry, the collector, we don't have access to that breakdown for you this evening.
That's good to know. I didn't realize the applicant filled that part out, so we're trusting that those dollar amounts are accurate. Okay. Okay, ma'am, so if I understand this right, you're claiming that you mailed this on December 30th? Mm-hmm. Do you remember what day of the week that was by chance?
I think it was a Monday, because I was going to mail it before that, but there was no mail pickup.
And
On Sunday.
is there anything that you can tell us, or any kind of evidence or anything that you had that would show that you paid it, or that you mailed it on that day?
I don't have any, no.
Nothing?
No.
Where did you mail it?
On North Brighton at the post office.
At the post office?
Mm-hmm.
The mailbox out in front of the post office?
Yes,
The one off of Brighton?
yes. I thought it wouldn't take too long to get here, but
Been there several times. Was anybody with you?
no.
Now, I noticed your check, though, has a date of January 3rd written on it. Why would you
Okay.
put a check date of January 3rd if you mailed it on December 30th?
I don't know. I didn't realize it said January 3rd. Maybe I thought that's when it was due. I'm not sure.
Because the post office has it marked on January 3rd, as that's when they received it, which coincides with your check date of January 3rd. So I'm just wondering why, if you mailed it on the 30th, why you wouldn't put that date of the 30th on your check?
I don't know why I didn't.
Could you have possibly mailed it on the 3rd and not realized it?
No, I didn't. I know I mailed it before then.
Okay.
There was a holiday in there and then the weekend and I don't know.
I get it, yeah. Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Commissioner Wagner.
Well, as usual, Commissioner Johnson stole my thunder with that question. No, it's quite fine, and so I'll just kind of advance to I guess my comment. And I do appreciate you, Ms. Randolph, coming here. I know we've had this on the docket a couple of times, and so I appreciate you being here. But I find it's very hard for me to support waiving when even the check is written past the date when the tax is due. And so I don't know, and I'll be honest, we have in the past, just to kind of complete the thought that was earlier brought forward by my colleague, in the past, I believe we have gone with the issue related to the post office and when it may postmark or mail something. I think primarily because the state allows itself that out, as I recall, and Commissioner Johnson brought that up. But it is honestly hard for me to be helpful to you in this situation because I've never seen someone write a check for a future date. It's always been the date they mail.
I don't know. I might have been paying some other bills and just wrote.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, so I'm kind of stuck because I see a date on a check that's written past the date when the tax is due, and which would suggest to me that, well, even if I wanted to be helpful, I got a check that says, is it for something past December 31st? So I just say that just to say, I don't know what the motion will be, whether it will be to support or deny you, but I'm afraid that my vote will have to be to deny simply because of what I see on this check today. But I appreciate you being a good taxpayer here in Clay County and your support of Clay County.
Yes, I've been paying taxes here since 1969.
I hear you.
And I've never been late.
I hear you. I hear you. But as alluded to by our county councilor, we're kind of handcuffed by what the law says as far as if we have shown that we have made a mistake. If we have, then we can be helpful. If we haven't, then what you have to get there to be able to be helpful is pretty high.
and I'm afraid, at least from my point of view, I can't be helpful this evening. And I'll just leave it at that, but I appreciate your support of this county. I appreciate you being in this county, and I'm sorry I just can't help you this evening.
Okay.
Commissioner Lawson?
Yeah, I saw that on the check after the fact, so I would have to agree with Commissioner Wagner that while I wish I could do something, we've got to have really strong substantiation when we do this because of the law. If, the check were dated on the 30th, I would feel quite differently about it, but unfortunately, with it being dated the 3rd and postmarked on the 3rd, I wouldn't be able to support that. And I do appreciate you coming here, I honestly do. Wish I could do more to help you, but I don't feel that we would be able to.
Okay.
Commissioner Johnson?
Mr. Randolph, thanks again for coming in. First of all, you've been paying taxes since 1969. You've been paying taxes. You've been a loyal customer of ours prior to half of the commission up here actually being alive.
I'm sure.
So we appreciate that. And if we can give loyalty points out or give credit for taxpayers that have been loyal and on time, we would do that. But as I'm sure you're aware, and it's probably not already been explained to you, that state law doesn't allow us to waive fees unless it's our fault. What we have done in the past a couple times when we've been able to show that it's the fault of the post office, that, hey, someone has come to us and said, look, I can show you that I mailed it on time before the due date, and there's evidence to support that, then we have, taken that risk and overturned and given those fees back. But in this case, there's really nothing that, matter of fact, the evidence is kind of against you in the fact that the check was dated on the date that it was mailed, or that it was postmarked, which was January 3rd, which is 3 days late, which even if we wanted to, the state doesn't allow us to as far as I'm concerned, okay, a couple days late, it's not a big deal to me, you can have your money back. The state doesn't allow us to do that. So our hands are tied as far as that's concerned. So I apologize, but I'm going to have to make the motion that we pass 2025-41 with a box marked denied, which means you won't have to pay those fees.
Okay.
Motion has been made for the approval of 2025-41 with the box marked denies indicated. Further discussion? Seeing none. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson? Yes. Commissioner Wagner?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Helped you. Thank you. That brings us to our next issue, which is 2025-76. Administrator?
Resolution 2025-76 is approving invoice payments for Clay County Prosecutor's Office for the period of February 29th through March 7th. There are 9 invoices totaling $1,541.
Commissioner Johnson?
Move to approve 2025-76.
Motion has been made for the approval of 2025-76. Discussion? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
I'll recuse myself.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson? Yes. Commissioner Wagner?
Aye.
Motion passes 4 in favor, 1 recusal.
The next and final item on our regular agenda is 2025-82. Administrator?
Resolution 2025-82 is approving the policy for naming Clay County parks, land, and facilities. Staff presented on this at a work session last week and has brought it forward, and we're certainly available to answer any questions you may have about this policy.
Are there any questions from the commission or any comments to be made? Very well. Commissioner Johnson?
First, just by way of explanation, I talked about this last week. I expect it to pass, but I'll be voting no just because I don't like the idea of naming our places after people for a number of reasons I explained last week. But that's all. I'll let somebody else move it.
Commissioner Wagner?
Thank you. Move to approve 2025-82.
Motion has been made for the approval of 2025-82. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I believe you have a...
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Lawson. A little too quick there. Please go right ahead.
You don't love me anymore. The only thing, I've given this some thought, and I agree with Commissioner Johnson that I want to be cautious about just throwing names out there. I have seen a number of places, and I won't say where or who or anything, but where in one town, 3 things are named after one guy because he put up the money to do it. If it is a historical site that we find out about, say like later, there's a park and there's some, if you want to name it after some historical figure, amen, I say that's a good thing. And I kind of want to be careful about this, about how I word this, because like they say, you can't make a cat walk backwards. And so I would say that while I understand the good parts of it, I would have to be against it, because I would hate to think that somebody throws enough money at us and then we say, okay, for you, Fred, we're going to name this after you. For no good reason, not because he's a good guy or he's done something exemplary, but just because he had more money than the rest of us, and so we do that. So I would say that while I see great good in here in some things, there's enough in here that makes me have pause for being able to be gung-ho for the thing being approved. So.
Okay. Just alluding to the remarks that Commissioner Johnson made, that we had discussed this previously, I think it is healthy, and I certainly appreciate it when we have diverse opinions on the commission. Commissioner Johnson, I think, raised some points. Now, whether they are enough to sway one commissioner's vote or not is sort of beside the point. The point is legitimate concerns were raised, and I think should we pass this, I think those concerns should be accounted for as we go forward. Commissioner Carpenter.
Thanks. Yeah, so I'm going to vote in favor. I certainly understand not wanting to, name stuff after folks who got not name it after. I think what I would just point out is that status quo, this commission has the ability to name parks after people. Even without this resolution, we could do that anytime we want. After this resolution passes, the commission has the ability to name parks and stuff after people. So nothing changes. We still have total authority over whether or not we name parks or other historical sites after people. So I just want to, in that regard, put people's mind at ease, right? We're not gaining or losing any authority that we currently have. This just kind of spells out some rules of the road. For that reason, I will be supporting it. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Does anyone else care to make any comments before I go to Commissioner Wagner to close? Seeing none this time. Commissioner, you are recognized to close.
Yeah, I shouldn't have told you. No, I'm kidding. No, I will just say, and I respect all those opinions. I do believe that the absence of structure is not structure. To our colleagues' comment, folks can still make a run on us to say, hey, I'd like you to name this, or I'm going to give the county this, and therefore we'd like for you to name this. And this just provides a structure and a pathway for it to be scrutinized before it gets here. And I don't think that's a bad thing. And that's why I supported it last week. I'll support it again today. And with that, I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Wagner.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
No.
Commissioner Thompson.
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson.
No.
Motion passes 3-2.
Our regular agenda this evening. The next item is our single discussion item, Regional Multi-Hazard Mitigation Plan, and that would be the Sheriff Widinot Administrator.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to introduce Captain Agdarian, who will provide some information about this particular plan and introduce members of the Sheriff's Office that will provide additional information.
Captain, please proceed.
Good evening, Commissioners. Captain Amy Agdarian, Clay County Sheriff's Office. This evening, we are going to be briefly presenting some information to you about the Regional Multi-Hazard Risk Mitigation Plan. This is put together by Mark. Every 5 years, it is reviewed and revisited, and Mark does a great job of gaining support and input from various community partners, different counties, jurisdictions, law enforcement agencies, but most importantly tonight, the Emergency Management Department. And so I have asked our Emergency Management Director, Ann Pelzel, to come and speak to you about what this plan means for Clay County and what it means for you as a commission. And we decided that a discussion item might be the best forum for this because some of the commissioners that are here now were not here the last time that this was signed 5 years ago. So we thought that it would make more sense to bring it as a discussion item instead of a regular agenda item, but it is our intention to submit it for the regular agenda next week for your approval and adoption. And with that, I turn it over to Director Pelzel.
Hello. So I know some of you were here the last time that we pushed this through. So basically, this plan is comes from Mark, as she stated. In Clay County, we have 13 different municipalities and school districts that have participated this year. And we are at a phase where the draft plan has been published on Mark's website. And basically, our next steps forward is asking our local officials and people in the community, other stakeholders in the public to now review the plan and submit their input so that we can then move forward with presenting the plan to the state and federal government for approval. So as Captain Edgarian stated, we will bring this back to you guys for your approval because we will need it to be a resolution for Clay County to be approved as well. Do you guys have any questions specifically about the plan?
Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, thanks. So my question, I don't want to put you on the spot, and I don't know if maybe the captain might want to answer this, but my concern is Mark, how do I say this? Mark has a lot of influence and can be, I don't want to say a bully, but I'll just for lack of a better term, can sometimes be a bully. I just want to make sure that our sheriff's department, excuse me, is comfortable with this plan, or is there any issues at all that's being maybe forced upon our county or forced upon our sheriff's department that we're not happy with in this plan? Is there anything that you guys are identifying in that you think we should push back on? I'm seeing a head shake from the captain.
Please come up and that way we can get the recorded response.
You can't record the head shake, no? So when Annie and I began working, well, Annie has done all the work on this project.
Sure.
I am just a speaker to bring it to you. But when she brought this to my attention, the first question that I asked her was, is this good for Clay County? Do you have any concerns about how this plan is, as proposed, would affect the sheriff's office, would affect the county as a whole? And she immediately responded that no, she and her assistant, Grace Weininger, had been working with Mark as this plan came about. Right. So at every step of the way, they were able to have input and to make sure that it was good for us as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great question, though.
That's really what I need. So I trust your guys' opinion, and that's why you guys are here. You are the expert on emergency management. I actually have hired several of your positions before in my old job, and so I learned that I have to trust that position because they know more than I know about some emergency management stuff, and particularly this kind of stuff. So as long as you're happy with it, I'm happy with it. And if you guys are saying you're happy with it, then so am I. Thank you.
Any other comments before we conclude any other discussion points that I was just trying to look up and to see, would this have gone, and Mark, would this have gone through I think there's a hazardous waste board. What was the path going through Mark? What I'm trying to do is make sure that the sheriff's department, sheriff's office had the ability to, if they were on one of those boards, that they could have weighed in.
On the plan specifically? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. When we submitted this to the agenda, there was a link on the website, or I'm sorry, there was a link on the email that I sent to have this included in the agenda. You know, I love trees too, and did not want to kill 4,000 trees to print this off to bring to you. It's a long document, like.
It's over 1,000 pages.
Yeah. So I didn't print off the entire document, but there is a link in the email that will take you to the document itself. And again, that's why we wanted to bring it tonight like this, so that you could have the week to review it and come back on the regular agenda next week with any concerns that you have. But we wanted to make sure that you had time to read every single page of that 1,000-page document. So.
Nothing I love more. Yeah, no, I was just, I wanted to verify that we had different opportunities to weigh in, so. Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you, and Captain, I appreciate you providing a potential sleeping aid for us, but I'm sleeping very well and I don't need to read 1,000 pages. But just to get back to our presiding commissioner's question, if I remember right, and this goes back to my marketing days, and I was working on the old weather radio projects way back when, that was done through the emergency services group out of MARC, right, which was basically all the sheriffs and all of your equivalent folks within those cities and county governments, and that's the group that produced this 1,000 pages that we have found out this evening, right? So you're at the table, the sheriff's at the table, or his representative is at the table, as well as everyone else within the regional jurisdiction, correct?
Yes, so we had a strategic planning team, which was majority made up of the county emergency managers, and then they independently worked with their city and municipalities and brought all of that information to the table.
Right. It's what I figured, but I thought I'd try to
I
hone in on
appreciate
that question a little
that,
more.
because I just, I want to make sure that we have our ability to have input at the appropriate points. It sounds like that is indeed the case.
Yeah, because part of the authorship of that 1,000 pages is from you.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. All right, thank you.
How many pages did you contribute? Never mind, no. Is there any further discussion? Are we looking then for just consensus so that I have the ability to sign the documents? Oh, no, or that's when the resolution.
It will be on next week's agenda. We'll probably
Right.
put it on the consent agenda since we're not hearing any discussion or changes or recommendations. And so it will come next week for your vote to approve. Then we will forward it on to MARC that they have Clay County's signature on the document.
Just wanted to verify there wasn't anything, all you're looking for from us is, yes, we're good to take it up next week. Okay, very good.
And if you have any questions specifically about it, feel free to reach out to me and we can discuss it. And I can show you the specific places to look that are really the work that Grace and I did to see if it aligns with what you guys would like in the plan too. So you don't have to do 1,000 pages.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, none of us do except Commissioner Wagner.
Well, I don't know what's on your literary calendar, but that would generally is not.
Anyway, any further questions, discussion? Seeing none, that concludes our discussion items. That brings us to reports. Administrator?
Thank you. There's one report in your packet, and that is the auditor's cash basis monthly report for February. If you have any questions, please reach out to the auditor. We'd be happy to answer those questions.
Very good. Administrator comments.
Just a couple of items. I think I talked about these last week, but we have a couple of items going on we want to make sure the public is aware of. First is the Senior Tax Relief Program. The applications period will close the end of March, March 31st. Again, 4 o'clock in person here at the courthouse or the annex, and online right before midnight. So certainly encourage everyone to get their applications in. We have almost I think 14,000 now applications. So staff is diligently working on looking at all those applications. So if your application is in-house and you've not heard from us, trust us, we will get to, and you will get information from us regarding that. And then the other item is we are taking applications for the Citizen Academy that will start in April for 6 weeks. So again, if people are interested, please go to our website under Boards and Commissions Applications, and you can fill out an application to participate in that program. And then the last item is the meeting of the commission is next Thursday, March 20th, 6 o'clock here in the chambers.
Thank you. Next will be Commissioner comments. Commissioner Lawson, do you have any comments? Commissioner Wagner? Commissioner Johnson?
I'm just excited we got done a little early tonight. I'm going to get home and read this multi-hazard mitigation plan and be ready next week to talk about it.
Commissioner Thompson? Commissioner Carpenter?
Thank you, Commissioner. Well, I'll keep us here a little longer, Commissioner, since, I did some reading last week. We all loved it so much. Maybe I'll do a little more this evening. And actually, one of the tools you can use, last week talked a little bit about artificial intelligence, y'all may recall. So one of the tools you can use is called Deep Research, and one of the amazing functions it has is you can take the 1,000-page document, and with the right prompting, you can get a really, really nice, healthy summary out of it. So if you want to narrow that down to 10 pages, there is a way to do it. Sounds like you're on the ball. So, which I will be doing actually. So, yeah. I've talked before about the last 80 years being the greatest 80 years of peace and prosperity in the history of the human species, and I talked about it because it's true, and I think that's really important, and I think we would all be well advised to do what we can to keep that going for the next 80 years rather than getting complacent. And I've grown concerned over the years that a lot of the political discourse has become, we do a lot of fighting with each other, we do a lot of like party versus party stuff. A lot of it has devolved into sort of social media spats. And the long lessons of history and the values of history have often sort of become secondary through that process. And it's a lot more of us versus them. And I'm just trying to remind folks about some old school values that unite us all as Americans. I'm a classic Enlightenment era American. I believe in freedom of speech, free markets, self-determination through democracy, the rule of law. I think these are the kind of things that actually bind us together and give us a lot more in common with each other than we sometimes realize, and what separates us from some of the other countries of the world where people don't live in freedom and don't live in countries with rule of law or free speech or free markets or democracy. And I think we'd be well advised to remember that there's a big gap, a much bigger gap between us and, say, communist China than there is between Democrats and Republicans here in America. Talked a little bit last week about the tariffs. I'm growing increasingly displeased by the tariff situation, just sharing that honestly with y'all. As you know, perhaps you know, we've lost over $5 trillion of wealth in the last 2 weeks. It's a lot of money. And, it's money that a lot of American families rely on, and including a lot of seniors for their retirement. And I'm concerned about the direction things are headed. I've quoted Ronald Reagan before about his views on the last 80 years and the great prosperity and peace that the United States has helped to guarantee. Now, I'm going to quote the old Gipper again this evening because I think he's got some relevant information for us. This was a Thanksgiving radio address that President Reagan was giving. And as I said before, I think President Reagan was a good president, the right president we needed at that time. I'm glad he served our country. I think he did so faithfully and well. So I'm going to quote Ronald Reagan again this evening. As we reflect on the many things we have to be grateful for, we should take a moment to recognize that one of the key factors behind our nation's great prosperity is the open trade policy that allows the American people to freely exchange goods and services with free people around the world. The freedom to trade is not a new issue for America. In 1776, our founding fathers signed the Declaration of Independence, charging the British with a number of offenses, among them, and I quote, cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, end quote. In that same year, a Scottish economist named Adam Smith launched another revolution with a book entitled The Wealth of Nations, which exposed for all time the folly of protectionism. Over the past 200 years, not only has the argument against tariffs and trade barriers won nearly universal agreement among economists, but it has also proven itself in the real world, where we have seen free trading nations prosper while protectionist countries fall behind. America's most recent experiment with protectionism was a disaster for the working men and women of this country. When Congress passed the Smoot-Hawley tariff in 1930, we were told that it would protect America from foreign competition and save jobs in this country. The same line we hear today. The actual result was the Great Depression, the worst economic catastrophe in our history. One out of 4 Americans were thrown out of work. 2 years later, when I cast my first ballot for president, I voted for Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who opposed protectionism and called for the repeal of that disastrous tariff. Ever since that time, the American people have stayed true to our heritage by rejecting the siren song of protectionism. We too often talk about trade while using the vocabulary of war. In war, for one side to win, the other must lose. But commerce is not warfare. Trade is an economic alliance that benefits both countries. There are no losers, only winners. And trade helps strengthen the free world. Yet today, protectionism is being used by some American politicians as a cheap form of nationalism, a fig leaf for those unwilling to maintain America's military strength and who lack the resolve to stand up to real enemies. Countries that would use violence against us or our allies. Our peaceful trading partners are not our enemies, they are our allies. We should beware of the demagogues who are ready to declare a trade war against our friends, weakening our economy, our national security, and the entire free world, all while cynically waving the American flag. The expansion of the international economy is not a foreign invasion, it is an American triumph. One we worked hard to achieve and something central to our vision of a peaceful and prosperous world of freedom. After the Second World War, America led the way to dismantle trade barriers and create a world trading system that set the stage for decades of unparalleled economic growth. Well, it goes on. My observation is this. When it comes to guaranteeing the future for our country, we have 2 top-line objectives. One is to maintain international security, and the other is to maintain an international economy that is healthy and growing. Those are the 2 top-line missions. I don't comment on the social issues of the day. I don't join the partisan back and forth and rancor. I don't because ultimately I don't think those things tend to be too terribly important. And I don't think they're too helpful to the kind of unity that I think we need in this country. And I respect democratic outcomes. You know, the American people made their voice heard this past November, and I appreciate the corrective power and dynamism of democracy. It allows for change, and change is a perfectly okay thing. But we can also learn the lessons of history, and we ought to. And people have laid signposts down for us to share that information with us. And to a certain extent, the markets speak for themselves, right? As I mentioned, we have over $5 trillion of losses in the last couple of weeks. I know nobody wants to go in a direction of another Great Depression, as Ronald Reagan said, and certainly would hope that that's not the direction we're headed. But I think these are lessons that we would be well advised to keep front of mind, and I would simply ask that as we go forward, we all advocate for what is true and what is right, and those are American values that have served us well, and I think will keep serving us well if we can hold true to them. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. One of the things that I could not help but think about when Commissioner Carpenter was making his comments was the fact that Ronald Reagan, President Ronald Reagan, and then Speaker of the House Tip O'Neill, different parties, but were able to work together for the common good. Certainly different and diverse views from those two gentlemen. And I think that we, you know, I believe that we on this commission have gone in that direction, and I'm very happy at the way that we have been conducting ourselves. While this evening we had an issue that was, there was a split vote, there were no hard feelings, there were no harsh words, it was just an expression of points of view. We voted and then we went on, which it seems to me that maybe those further up the line could benefit from that particular example. With that, thank you very much for this evening. We are adjourned.